Welcome to this presentation on why Yammer is still relevant today. My name is Robert, and you'll find more details about me in the bottom right hand corner on Twitter and also at the web address that is there. So when we start talking about Yammer, let's understand firstly what is Yammer. So as a product that was launched back in 2008, from there it was purchased by Microsoft in 2012 for about $1.2 billion. It's a cloud-only solution, so there is no current equivalent on-prem. There's no Yammer server on-prem that you can install. All the functionality is delivered directly via the cloud. Now, there is a Yammer Basic that is free, so you can go to yammer.com, sign up with an email address, and you'll then be able to access the free version of Yammer. Now, of course, there is an enterprise version that is included for free with all Office 365 SharePoint plans. So if you have a plan in Office 365, Business Premium, E3 for example, that will include a Yammer license for the user. All right, so one of the reasons that we really need Yammer is what's covered in this video here. So this video, which I'll leave you to watch yourself, basically indicates that what is very common in the workplace is what's known as email trees. So somebody sends out an email and then other people reply and you get more people in the conversation. So the end result here in this example in the video is that to make one decision, 63 emails have to go backwards and forwards. Much better to put that whole process into something like a social network where everything's transparent, anybody can join the conversation and make contacts, and it's available to everybody rather than in a siloed location like email. So encourage you to go and have a look at that video. Again, the URL is there and will be provided at the end with all the resources. So think about how you communicate today. How do you actually communicate with people in the business, right? So typically it's done through emails. We have meetings. We have all sorts of things that we do standard in business. But let's have a think about how kids today and those coming up into the workforce typically communicate. They're not really responsive to emails, phone calls not so much. Typically they're using social media, Facebook and SMS. So these are the people that are coming into your organization who are going to expect similar tools when they get into organizations, because that's what they're familiar with, that's what they've been working with and using with their friends and peers. So have a look at that and consider that in the way that your staff currently communicates. Are there better ways that you could take the best of social networking and messaging and maybe implement that inside your business to help your staff communicate better? Now, one of the big things we see is that a lot of businesses don't understand the concept of social. So they think that social networking is pure Facebook. They think it is simply people posting pictures of what they eat, what they do, trivial, waste of time. Now, again, social media will basically fall to the level which people are familiar with. Now, if you want people to use it as a business tool, you need to give them guidance, you need to give them direction and show them how to use it as a business tool. But it is very, very effective for a number of reasons. So again, let's have a look at what you use personally on a regular basis. What social networking do you use? It's Facebook? Is it Twitter? Again, think about that and the convenience that that can provide for you to get information and communications quickly. So we've seen out there things like Facebook. LinkedIn is a business-focused product. Twitter, again, for short blogging. Google+, and there are also others out there. Now, think about how you use social networking in your business. Maybe you're using it just to broadcast out to people on the internet looking for marketing, but you can certainly use it internally. Now, the big result here is that Yammer is, or social networking in general, is far bigger than just the individuals, right? It's about accumulating a body of knowledge in public that gives you the ability to search that information, locate it, and connect with people that you probably never had the opportunity to. So social networking allows you to follow people from any walks of life. Same thing inside a business if you implement social networking correctly. Now, a good example I've seen in an organization to help drive people into using Yammer or using tools rather than siloing an email is this example here. So when we zoom in, you'll see that the focus, the culture is about not doing email, to basically push it into Yammer so that the information is public, it's shared, and everybody can use that information. Now, importantly, stuff that we do put into emails in your inbox is siloed. So what that means is that the value of that information is only usable typically by the person who owns the email box. Now, if you look at the emails you have in your inbox, probably 90% of it could have value to other people. So if you shared that with somebody else somewhere would find value in that information. But locking it up, siloing it inside an inbox really restricts the flow of information there. Lots and lots of people today suffer from basically email overload. Everybody sends an email, CCs people, and again, these all accumulate in an inbox, and a lot of people just don't have the time and don't have the discipline to go through that and process all their emails. So we end up with a situation where people are getting constant emails, but basically choosing to ignore a vast majority of them. All right, as I mentioned, 90% of the stuff you probably get in an email could be of value to others. So a good example here maybe is a newsletter you get from an association or maybe from another organization. So rather than you getting that direct in your inbox and having to read it, maybe if it was sent to a social network where it could be shared, others in the business could comment, you could then be drawn to the specific attention points that you're interested in. And again, rather than sending an email to every single inbox in the organization, send one into the social network, and then people can view it at their leisure, comment, and also provide feedback, and then generally add additional value to that newsletter by making it public and making the comments they make public as well. Now, what happens to the emails when people leave the organization? They've accumulated all this information in a silo in their inbox, and when they leave the organization, what happens to that email? Sure, you may have to archive it. The policy may be to archive it, but really, once it's archived 3 months, 6 months down the track, what do you do with those emails? Are they ever used? Typically not. They're normally put to the side, they're put into storage and never touched again. So again, all that information inside that inbox when the individual leaves the organization is typically lost or locked away and nobody can get to it. Now, making things public importantly makes it searchable. So what that means is that if you, for example, share something on a social network, then it is searchable. Other people can not only find that information, but also comment on it. So let's say you post a question onto a social network asking how to solve a particular problem. Others can come in and give you links, give you suggestions. You can update that request when you found the solution so that when somebody else comes in, they can do a search, locate that problem, and then work through the process that's already down there and been done previously. So the searchability gives us a lot of value that can be added to the information. Now let's look at this in the context of business information. Where do employees go today to get information? Do they go to file shares? Do they go to their email? Where do they actually locate the information that they need? Studies show that about 30% of the time most employees have during office hours is spent trying to locate information. So if you can shorten that, if you can improve that, then you're going to see productivity benefits. Where do they go for help? Do they go to individuals? If they need help on technology, who do they talk to? If they need help on business or admin, who's the contact there? Do they just send an email and that gets buried in an inbox? Again, maybe putting it in a public forum allows others who have the bandwidth at that time to contribute to answer the question and provide support. I think that most businesses today still struggle with the concept of social, but they beginning to understand the value of it, especially as younger employees come into the organisation. So again, how do they be social but maintain all the compliance requirements they typically have? Now, the good thing about a lot of these networks is you can extend these networks to include customers, suppliers, partners, and so on. So that means, for example, you could create an external network in Yammer. You could invite your customers in there and you could share information in there. So if you're sending out a newsletter via email, maybe another way is to create a public forum. They can come in and ask questions. You can answer them, post additional information. Again, this gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more interactivity than you would normally get with just blasting out a newsletter, which really you don't get a lot of feedback on generally because it ends up in an inbox, probably to be read later. Now, another good video that I recommend you take a look at is this one here. Okay, so again, the URL I'll leave for you to have a look in your own time. It's an example from Microsoft, but it shows importantly how Yammer can be used as a problem-solving tool. So what it means is that there is a problem in the hotel here, and the manager does notice this and then basically broadcasts out that he wants a solution. You see the team working together to solve that problem. The other thing you'll notice here is that the team, a large majority of them, work away from their desktop. So this is another great thing about social networking and Yammer in the fact that it has mobile apps that allow you to access that information on the go, to be able to respond directly and also receive notifications around the information that you are sharing or that is important to you. So again, take a moment to have a look at that video. The URL will again be available in the resources at the end of the presentation. So Yammer basically allows you to bring the social concept into a business. It was designed exactly for that, for business users. It's not aimed at consumers, it's really aimed at a business. One of the first steps you can take when it comes to Yammer is to use it to eliminate email distribution lists. So we've all seen those that go around the organization that broadcast a huge amount of information that probably a lot of people don't read. And then if there are comments, you end up with this huge trail, basically, of email. Post that into a place like Yammer. People can comment, people can like, and the discussion can continue on. And it's all searchable and in one location. It allows people to collaborate. They can work on projects, they can share information, they can ask questions with people who they may not necessarily have direct contact with. So they can go in and ask a question, others can pop in and answer those questions, provide links, provide value throughout an organization that could be located in multiple offices, multiple locations, and multiple regions. As I mentioned, it importantly makes information searchable. So once we put it into a public forum, we can then run a search through our information and we'll then be able to not only find that information, but continue adding value to it down the track. Typically what we find with social networks is that we get more involvement from the organization. More people are willing to contribute, more people become involved with the day-to-day that happens in a social network when you set it up correctly. And as I mentioned, you can set up Yammer so that it communicates with people inside and outside the business. So it's not just limited to your own business environment, it can be extended to partners and to customers as well. Now, another really good video that I'd recommend you take a look at is this one here with Billy's Yammer. What it focuses on, again, is the Yammer product, but importantly, it draws out the fact that the employees at the coalface working with the customers typically don't have a voice in a traditional organization. They can send emails, but easy for those to be ignored or disappeared. In Yammer, Billy has the example where he finds something worth contributing, he puts his opinion in, and that opinion is then taken and rolled into the latest version of the product, which obviously gives him more involvement with the company, makes him feel that his suggestions are taken on board and he's better involved with the organization. So Yammer also, again, makes the employees more engaged, gives them the ability to post feedback directly, and encourages this open collaboration and suggestions, which is really, really what a lot of progressive companies are looking for. Now, one of the other benefits that Yammer does give when we talk about Office 365 is a single point of truth. So what we can do is we can post a link into our Yammer. That will then refer back typically to a document in a SharePoint team site. We can look at the document, we can then collaborate, we can make suggestions, we can talk about that document directly in Yammer without having to send attachments. If we need to update that document, we update it in its single location rather than having multiple versions. So placing the document in SharePoint online and then using Yammer to have the conversation around the document rather than doing this backwards and forwards in email makes a hell of a lot of sense. Now, obviously, when it comes to the enterprise version of Yammer, one of the differences between this and the free version is the ability to go in and administer the network. So if you have the rights, typically being a global administrator, and you go into the cog there, you'll see you get the option to go in and select network admin. Now this will give you an enhanced interface. This is the administration across the organization. So you'll see you've got usage policy, you've got the ability to block users, and so on. So if you do have the rights, go into the cog and select network admin, and you will get access to that directly. All right, so we've talked a lot about Yammer, so why don't we just pop out quickly and have a quick view of what Yammer's all about. Okay, so here we are in the Yammer inside my Office 365 tenant as a demo. You'll notice basically what I've got is my home, my inbox, and my alerts up here. You've got the cog that I can go in and manage my own settings, and you'll notice I am a network admin, so I can go in and access that. Across the top here, I've got basically my standard box, which I can put in what's happening at the moment. So if we put in here, doing a demo of Yammer, you'll see that I can target individuals to that, right? So what I can do is I can go mention them. So if I put in, say, Lewis Collins here, what it will do, hopefully, is basically pop up that user and allow me to add that. The other way we can add it down here is we can select the people here and add them directly. So if I go back up here maybe, and let's try adding Gordon Jackson, there we go. So I can add him and he will then be notified directly. You'll notice it appears down the bottom here. I can upload a GIF. I can also select files from my OneDrive. I can also select a file that's on Yammer. And if I want, I can upload a file from my computer. Now I can add topics. So topics are effectively what's known as hashtags. So we can put in here, for example, a hashtag which is #demo. And this would be the same as going in and adding topics here. So I could do demos here. All right, and when I'm ready, I simply go post. Now that then posts that to the feed. I can go in here and then write replies. You'll see that I get the ability to like, reply, share, edit, and the ellipses allow me a number of other options in here if I want to. Over in the right, you'll see that I can invite my co-workers, I can add apps, and I have suggested groups, and potentially I have a link to other resources in my Office 365. Now if I go in, you'll see over here that I've got a number of groups. So this is basically all companies. So this is the top level. You can see everybody's a member. They get all information in here. I can look at just the new conversation, the all conversation, which is the Firehose feed. Now if I go into, for example, the Office 365 101, this is an example of you can use it for a tech support environment. So this is a subgroup which potentially you can limit the members, and they're listed over here on the right. And again, you just go in here and share this. So if we go in here and put in, how do I enable Yammer? Okay, and then I post that, and that would then allow someone to come in and answer the question for me. All right, so we can customize a lot of the look and the feel. We can customize the info here, and you'll see that I also have the ability to set the access option. So you can contribute to Yammer directly using email if you want. So you can do that without having come to the web interface, as well as being able to embed this into your SharePoint site if you want. So over here, I also get the ability to create a new group, an internal or an external group. So typically external are set to allow people outside the organization. Internal is within your organization. And you'll see here I can determine whether it's public or private. So public means that anybody can discover that. Private means they have to be invited to come into that environment. So look, there's a brief overview of what Yammer is. It should be very familiar to a lot of people who use social networks, but the most important thing up here in the top left-hand corner is the ability to do a search. So if I do a search for a tag, all right, that I've talked about, I've mentioned something called #helpme. So now I can find that tag, and importantly, if I select this tag, right, basically what this is going to do is it will take me to a list where that tag or that topic has been mentioned on a regular basis, right? So they're all the examples. Now, importantly, I can then follow that tag. So if my job was technical support, anytime somebody mentioned the hashtag help me, I could then follow that and be notified. So we can follow hashtags, we can follow individuals. Again, this whole concept of social is very, very important in the organization to improve collaboration. But with that, let's go back to the slides and continue on. So why is Yammer important? Why is this new concept of working so important to our organizations today? Well, the brief description I've got for you is the way I like to categorize it is that we face a world that I like to divide up into basically three universes: old, new, and modern. So in the old world, we typically see on-prem file servers, traditional emails and attachment, standalone calendars, data that's typically in files but also written down, communication done by phone call, one-on-one, and work was a place that you typically went to. You physically went to work. Now that environment has changed significantly. We're needing to work with files and share with others anywhere in the world. We need to communicate and share things like calendars very, very readily throughout our organization and with external people. We also typically no longer work from one location all the time. We work from home, we work from our Wi-Fi, we work from the airport when we're traveling. Now, if we don't provide the tools to allow users to do this, what happens is they go out and implement themselves thanks to web tools out there that will share files, will allow communications, will do web-based emails, and with this range of Wi-Fi hotspots available, they can connect up anywhere. All right, so we don't want to do that. We want to make sure all our corporate information is in an environment that we can manage and control. This is where Office 365 comes in. It allows us to basically make sure all our data inside is compliant. So our emails, and they're connected to our calendars. We get SharePoint and OneDrive for our personal and for our team files, and we get cool tools like Yammer, Power BI, Planner, all those sort of things. However, there is still a bit of an issue here, because the reality is a lot of these things still need to be provisioned by the IT inside the organization. So to set up a SharePoint team site, you typically still need to go to IT and request it and work out the structure and who's a member and so on. So the way it's moving is this is being overcome by the implementation of things like Teams. So Teams gives users the ability to create an email box, a SharePoint team site, a place to chat, Power BI, Planner, immediately by simply giving it a name. So that means, in essence, that our control for our IT resources is shifting from the IT admin over to the user. The users are able to enable to set up these things without the need for going to IT. Also means that our data moves from being very structured in files and folders, particular network shares, to being very ad hoc. We need a team to do accounts, we create a team. We need a team for this project, we create it. The data is held basically in a SharePoint team site, but the user has no concept of where that is. They just need somewhere to put files, so they create a team and they're off to the races. And again, our access moves from being very linear, think of an inbox working from top to bottom, to being parallel in Teams and in Yammer. We're working with multiple conversations at multiple times. So this is the modern world of collaboration. Now, again, we've talked specifically about Teams here, which is a combination of a lot of products. So it's email, SharePoint, chat, and Planner, and Power BI, and so on. All right. Now we'll come to where Yammer fits in here, but let's just spend a moment talking about where data is and how it's organized in Office 365 these days. So typically, all the data in the organization is spread across shared data and personal data, and the majority of it is shared data, as I've indicated here. Now we want to put all of that inside Office 365, and we put things like files into SharePoint. There is a place in SharePoint for common data and a place for our personal data. We also need to do emails, because email is still very important to most organizations. So we have a location for our personal email and also our shared email. We need to create plans and tasks in the shared environment. We also need to do chat standalone, and we potentially need to do communications, voice meetings, and we do that with Skype. Now, the traditional way of looking at this is to say we could use all of these individual items as silos. All right, so we use them as we need them, but they're not really connected together, and we have to configure them manually. So what we do is we basically create a personal mailbox in exchange for our personal data. OneDrive for Business is where the location is for our personal files. That's provided to each user that receives a license. Then what we do when we have to share emails, we put it into a shared mailbox so that everybody potentially can access that. We put our shared data into a team site. We work with a plan, and we work with the Yammer network. So we can have multiple Yammer networks working together to share information, and of course we can have meetings in Skype. Now where the change is now is that when we put these together, we get something called an Office 365 group. If we add the connectors to potential outside sources like third-party options like Facebook and Twitter that we can feed into here, again, we're getting more information in there, and we provision those basically in one step. Now, if we include something called rostering, we get Staff Hub, which is a superset of groups, and then if we add persistent chat and Skype, we typically get something called a team. So the way to think about the direction that we're taking with our collaboration software is that we don't provision individual siloed application and services anymore. We look to provision a group of services together. We provision them all together, typically in a team. If we don't need them immediately, there's a good chance we will need them down the track. Now, all of this is well and good, but unless we can actually get users to use the services we've created, it's pretty much a waste of time. They're going to go back to the way they've always done things. So how do we drive adoption? The first way that we drive adoption when it comes to things like new technologies like Office 365 is we have a range of users in our organization. So we typically have people starting from the left-hand side who are our early adopters. Okay, so these people are the people that will take up the technology quicker, and of those, the very, very first are basically what we call innovators. They are willing, keen, and more than interested in taking up the very bleeding edge, but they're a very small percentage. The next one are early adopters. They wait until a few people have got in, and then they are keen to test the new technology. The next larger percentages are our early majority and then our late majority, and the last option is our laggards, who are about 16% of the population. So we need to craft an adoption strategy that will be relevant for our whole organization. Now, I would suggest that you need to focus on the innovators and also the laggards, right? Anything in between is relatively easy to manage. So you need to come up with a strategy for your innovators and for your laggards. Now, again, this is where search is so important, because when the laggards typically need to find information, they want to just be able to do it like they do on the internet, do a search, and up pops the information that they're after. So again, technology is irrelevant if we don't come up with an adoption strategy that enables it across our organization. So the suggested progression for such an adoption strategy starts with Yammer in my books, because the Yammer strategy is Yammer keeps it simple. Yammer allows you to put in a product without any local infrastructure that is available on the web, that is different from anything else, doesn't necessarily need to be interconnected to SharePoint or OneDrive for Business, so it's allowable to roll this out very quickly. The other thing that Yammer gives you is that it's mobile aware. So you've got mobile apps that allow you to work with this service immediately. So again, you're getting this driving to the mobility side of it. You're getting people out in the field who can take photos, post them in Yammer, make comments. Really, really great way to get this adoption very quickly. So the main thing here is that Yammer is a great starting point because it keeps things simple but shows people the possibilities. Okay, now from there, my recommendation is to look at OneDrive, then go to OneNote, look at Delve, and then you dive into Teams and Skype for Business and SharePoint and Planner and so on. Now, the strategy, the reason behind this is, I think, very simple. These first four products, so Yammer, OneDrive, OneNote, and Delve are what I categorize as me services. These are services that I can embrace that represent me. Now, Yammer can be used obviously for me to watch what's going on in the organization, see what others are doing, see what others are saying. I don't have to contribute. I can sit back and watch and get a feel for it before I dive in. Now, that's typically what you would see with your laggards who really are going to be hesitant. However, on the other side, your innovators are going to be keen straight away. They're going to want to contribute. They're going to want to go in there and start posting information, posting links, helping other people. Yammer is going to allow them to do that. So Yammer, I think, fulfills the broad spectrum of being something that all users can associate, whether they just want to look at what's going on or watch what other people are saying, or they want to get in there and contribute. Now, again, things like OneDrive are my files. OneNote is my personal diary or my personal notes. And Delve is my personal search engine. So once I've got across the me services, once I've felt engaged with these services and understand them, then I'm happy to move on to the us services, right? And looking at OneDrive, for example, OneDrive is a subset of what's available in SharePoint team sites. So again, we're scaling people up, getting them familiar with the technology, not dumping it on them, expect them to pick it up. We're moving them into that slowly. Yammer's a great way to, again, get them engaged, get them started, get them sharing information, asking questions, and building this understanding of the new world of working in an open environment and showing them the real power of search. So when it comes to implementing a business, I think Yammer is so key to actually getting that adoption, getting those first steps into the Office 365 environment from people who are used to working in traditional file and folders and telephone calls and all that sort of stuff. So some best practices recommendations. Keep it as simple as possible. Right, so again, that's the real good thing of why I would select Yammer over Teams. Teams is great, has chat, but it also has files. It also has all these other options that can confuse users, especially those moving from traditional files and folders into this new cloud world of collaboration. So Yammer keeps it really simple. Now, that doesn't mean that down the track they can't migrate or they can't move into something like Teams, but Yammer's a great place to start because it keeps simple and it brings the company together. Importantly, Yammer has no infrastructure impact. You can put it in immediately. You can deploy the Yammer service straight after maybe you do email or get user identities in there. They can set it up on their mobile app, they can log in and they can start using it immediately, right? And the other thing too is that it's very familiar to them, right? They know exactly how it's going to work. You still probably need to give them some guidance and create some subgroups for them to work in. But again, it's something that they should be familiar with from working outside the organization in their personal life. As I mentioned, mobility is also key here. We're moving more and more of our business to being outside the organization. Yammer is key. So imagine that you've got someone who's traveling outside the business, meeting customers regularly. You're playing phone tag, leaving messages, what's going on. Imagine if you converted that to a Yammer process where they came in the morning, put their schedule into Yammer, and then they traveled around meeting customers and they just updated that Yammer, let people know where they are. Any messages that came in or questions could be dealt with in Yammer, could be dealt with in chat, and it's going to make life a lot easier. So think about it in that respect, that it's going to give people the ability to be mobile but also to stay in touch on a regular basis. Importantly, Yammer is going to show the possibilities of the cloud. A lot of people are resistant, a lot of people are hesitant because they don't see the benefits. Yammer is a great way to give the benefits, to give people the immediate impact, to give them the ability to search the information and share something that they've never done before. Typically, they've done it via email, very frustrating. They do it in Yammer, all of a sudden, it opens up that information flow for them inside the organization, allows them to contribute and share their ideas. And as I mentioned, it doesn't prevent you from moving to Teams later. Teams is great. It includes chat, but it also encapsulates files and is aimed at a group of people working on a common function. Yammer I see as more as something to work across the whole organization. All right. The other good thing is Yammer is easy to share with external parties to do chats and all that thing. So it keeps it simple for internal and external users. And you may end up with some stuff that stays in Yammer, things like social or help desk but then maybe things like HR, finance, admin, or location go to Teams. Again, the idea here is once you train them with Yammer, once they get familiar with Yammer and the way chat works and the ability for search to look across that information, they can then take that knowledge into Teams and build on it, so Teams doesn't frighten them as it may if they go in there first. Remember, as I mentioned, adoption is far more important than the technology itself. If you have the greatest technology and people don't use it, your technology is useless. It's basically wasted. Your investment there is not going to get the ROI you're after. So think about adoption before, and I think Yammer is a great tool to drive that adoption as a stepping stone for greater adoption inside Office 365 for the reasons that I've mentioned. So the takeaway here is that Yammer makes the conversation and the knowledgeable searchable. It opens up conversations and collaboration in public. All right, again, it gives these people the connection to others in the organization, which is important if they're working different locations, different times. Again, it allows that connection to be much more residual. And again, social is the way the new employees, people coming into the organization, the younger people coming into the workforce now expect to work. They're not really email people. They're not really phone people. They do things via messaging. They do things via social networking. It's quicker and easier to do it in there so it can be shared with everybody rather than siloing it in email. Social does require a bit of a different approach, but you need to adopt that and then just give people guidelines. If you don't give them guidelines, they're going to use it like Facebook. That's where that thinking comes in. And that's just being lazy. Like any business tool, you need to implement it and give people an example or give people the rules of how you want to use it. You know, it needs to be used like this, but not like this. Or this area is specifically for this or not for that. And that's why I like to create a social group inside the Yammer so that people can go in there and talk about birthdays and tipping competitions and sporting results and those sort of things, right? That's their social outlet. But there are business outlets. If you want to be social, that's where you go in that area. Otherwise, it's all corporate information. So again, you do need to give guidelines, but you've got to trust your users doing the right thing. If you have a good culture, they will adopt that and run with it, and it will be self-managing. All right, and we're talking about more and more integration with Office 365. Yammer can integrate now into SharePoint. Lots and lots of options. You can embed Yammer into SharePoint sites. We're going to see growing integration. So using Yammer is not going to be the end of the use of the tool. It will continue to be used going forward, but its usage or its requirements will change over time as they grow into things like Teams and other options. But again, it forms a very, very important part when it comes to adoption in my books. Remember that Yammer is now enabled on all tenants immediately. So if you go into a tenant, Yammer is going to be enabled. If you're not talking to your users about it, good chance that they will find it and start using it again without any guidelines, and that's when you can get into a whole lot of challenges. The idea here is be proactive, go in there, let them know what the tool does and how to use it effectively in your business and how you want them to use it. So some resources there, they will be available in the slide deck. I'll give you the URL shortly. Some more resources there, typically the videos that I recommend that you have a look at. And again, you can find this presentation, the slides for this at www.slideshare.net/director-CIA/what-yammer-is-still-relevant. Okay, so again, go up and have a look, download that. You'll have all the resources there. Here's information about myself and my business. Appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you've got something out of it. And please, if you do have any feedback, please contact me directly via the resources and the contact details that I have listed here. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.